Looking across archetypes in the base Neo format, you'll see that a lot of decks are based around Pokemon powers, while at the same time a lot of decks are based around special energy cards. And a third one is going to be Pokemon that use high energy attacks that cost 3 or 4 energy. So it stands to reason, understandably, that most decks were also equipped to deal with all three of those. They either had Pokemon like Muck that would shut down powers, Pichu to punish Pokemon that had powers, and they were always loaded down with energy removals and super energy removals to get rid of those special energy cards. So born from these trends, you see arise from this deck, which has a Pokemon that can attack for 1 colorless energy, requires no special energy cards whatsoever. That attack deals 30 damage, which is exactly what you're looking for to get rid of babies. And the absence of a Pokemon power allows you to use Pichu's Zap as many times as you want against your opponent without worrying about damaging anything on your bench. All of this positions Kingdra to be a very tricky card to deal with in this format. Most metagame counters end up being pointless in opponents' decks against Kingdra, and so a lot of cards they have in their hand just go to waste. So let's take a look at the build and discuss why KingdraCenter was a pretty great deck. Hey, Cleffa's in this deck. And I'll be running 3 of those in this version. That's plenty to try to get one in your opening hand. Start the game with it like you want to do with most base Neo decks. It's really going to help you get all the cards you need, since it's going to take at least 2 turns to get from Horsey up to Kingdra. You really want to keep your Seadras in there so there's no need for Pokemon Breeder. The Finslap Horsey has a little more HP than the typical one, so a solid 50 HP is going to be fine for a basic. There's not much in this format that's going to threaten it. Seadra, like I said, is pretty essential for this deck because that Mud Splash attack is going to be the attack you want to use over and over with Kingdra. It's going to deal 30 damage, which is perfect for knocking out babies, but also off of a coin flip, you could deal an additional 10 to something on their bench, which again is probably going to be another baby. Genetic Memory on Kingdra is what we're going to be using. It's only 1 colorless, so that gives you tons of room for other cards in this deck. Aside from energy, it gives you more leeway with discarding energy off of Kingdra for things like super energy removal. Pichu's going to be a great secondary attacker for this deck because Zap is going to let you deal spread damage to a lot of decks in this format that run cards like Noctowl or Muck, even things like Brock's Ninetales. And then Apom is a very good late game Pokemon just to keep you from decking out, since you may be cycling through your deck quite a bit. But Focus Band is going to be put on those Kingdras to make sure that they're not going to get O-code all the time. That way you can keep using that Genetic Memory to use Mud Slap, which is going to deal 30 damage, which is a pretty good little chunk. But mainly, if you're able to put that extra 10 on some baby Pokemon on the bench, as long as babies aren't active, you don't have to flip a coin to put damage on them. And so that's going to be a really easy way to get those secondary knockouts and really force your opponent to start moving their Pokemon around so that they're not getting hit by that incremental damage from Mud Splash, but also they're not going to get knocked out secondarily from that extra 10 damage. Focus Band and Pokemon Center are kind of going to go hand in hand with this deck, although they don't have to. Focus Band is going to let you live on that 10 health if you're lucky, but if not, even if you start accruing damage on Kingdra that you want to get rid of, using Pokemon Center basically has no drawback because you're only discarding 1 energy. You get 1 energy per turn anyway, so discarding it means nothing to Kingdra really. Running a 2-2 Oak and Elm like in most decks, and a full playset of energy removal and super energy removal. Like I said, you can fully utilize those without really feeling any drawbacks. It puts your opponent on the back foot, especially if they're using special energy cards. You get even more leeway with super energy removal because this deck runs Energy Stadium, which we'll get to in a minute. Double Gust is going to be preferred over normal Gust of Wind in this case because Kingdra has that retreat cost of 2. That can be really difficult to pull off. So in worst case scenario, you can Double Gust into a Cleffa and free retreat, but if you're really wanting to move your active as well as your opponent's, then the best bet for this one is going to be Double Gust. Computer Search is in here mainly to get you the right cards when you need them. It's really going to help you get that Pichu if you see your opponent setting up a lot of Pokemon with Pokemon powers. If they don't know you're running a Pichu in their deck, that can be really problematic for them, and so you want to computer search those out. It's also going to help you get those evolution cards when you need them. Item Finder is mainly going to be used to recycle Pokemon centers over and over again because your focus bands aren't going to get used up as much, but you are going to keep accruing damage, especially in this format where you have a lot of really hard hitting Pokemon like Chansey, like Wigglytuff. Energy Stadium is a great card for this deck because it'll let you get an energy card, a basic energy card, out of your discard and put right back into your hand. So it's really going to combat your opponent's energy removals, and also it's going to let you play Pokemon Center without worrying about wasting your energy or how you're going to get it back. Odds are your opponent's probably using a deck that doesn't run any basic energy cards. It's very rare in this format. Almost all decks ran exclusively special energy cards, and so your opponent's not going to be able to benefit from this stadium. The recycle energies benefit this deck in the exact same way, where you're not having to worry about getting an energy in your hand or wasting energy. If they get discarded, they're just going to come straight back to your hand. They're really useful to use on Cleffa to get that Eek attack off, because you really want to save your water energies just in case you're having to use a Kingdra to attack with. 7 energy round out this deck, and because it is a water type attacker, you do have advantage over some fire type decks, although most of those fall more into the rogue category, those Typhlosion and Charizard rogue builds. Because Kingdra has a solid 90 HP, you don't really have to worry about it being O-code all that often, although that is a huge weakness for this deck when you come up against really huge powerhouses that can deal damage basically too fast for you to respond, since you're only going to be dealing 30 damage yourself every turn. The main concern is with Kingdras. Because they have 70 HP, that's falling closer to the range of a Rocket Zapdos or a Chansey, which can be pretty risky. Kingdra can get walled pretty hard by Steelix decks, especially Steelix decks that don't run very many babies, because then that 10 damage that you're dealing to their bench it's just going to be going on to another Steelix, which is nothing. Against Steelix, it's going to take you a lot of turns to build up enough damage to knock it out, which means that you're going to be activating gold berries along the way. So really, Steelix and Chansey are both really bad matchups for this deck just because of really high HP and because of those metal energies reducing the damage that you can deal. All other matchups for Kingdra are either favorable or at least even. It can get into some slap matches with Wigglytuff or Clefable. With some lucky focus band coin flips, you can really put the pressure on Sneasel, since you can 2-hit KO. And a lot of times against a KingdraCenter deck, your opponent will try to just outlast you. They'll have a lot of Pokemon with free retreat, like Scyther, Sneasel, all the babies. But they're just going to end up with a lot of Pokemon that have 3 damage counters on them, moving back and forth until you eventually start knocking them out one after another. And that's the reason I like KingdraCenter so much, is it was a very direct answer to the rest of the metagame. You didn't really have to include cards in this deck to get back your special energy cards or to deal with other Pokemon powers that might get rid of yours. You really just stuck an energy on a Pokemon and attacked with it over and over again. So very simple. And oftentimes throughout metagames, that's how you build a deck that thrives, is to just simply do something that none of the other decks are doing. Per the usual, let me know what you think about this deck down in the comments. Let me know what decks you would like to see in the future. I set up an Instagram account for Drunk Shuckle so that I can show off some of the playtesting and little teases for upcoming videos, so check that out as well. And I'll see you on there, or I'll see you next video. Bye.